So, they say thermal doesn't lie. And if that's the case, this video from this retired state trooper in West Virginia is pretty compelling.
Something big is spooking residents. Multiple people have claimed to see a large furry animal trudging through the woods.
They literally could see him from all the way over here. I started hearing it. It was very large, and it was running so fast.
Your source for campers in Taos County. The Sheriff's Office is sharing safety tips on social media to protect yourself from
Bigfoot.
I saw something out of the corner of my eye off the side of the road in a culvert.
It's not like a bear, and it wasn't like a coyote. I've never seen anything like that.
No details, big, like 10-foot foam, big thing. It freaked out, hit in the leg.
I don't think it registered what it was.
What's the likelihood that there are big animals that have gone undetected by scientists and by trained observers?
What is up, everybody? Thank you all for joining me on this Wednesday evening. Got a good guest on for tonight. He's had a lot of stuff go on. And we're going to get into it. He's got some cool thermal videos. He's got a really cool trail cam pic. He's got some drawings of some stuff he saw too. So, going to be a good show. The show almost didn't happen. I had to have 2 teeth removed. I was supposed to have 3, but they only did 2 because I was late to my appointment. It's what happens when you make these appointments early in the morning. If you want me to be on time and at your thing, do not make it for 8 a.m. It's a story of my life. Don't do that. You know? But yeah, so they pulled the teeth and I felt better. Like my gums are sewn together, but that feels better than how they did before. Like I had a really bad pain in my ear and up in my temple, side of my face there. For probably about 6 weeks. It took me that long to get into the dentist. So, no drugs. No drugs. I'm taking Excedrin, you know. But we're good. Besides the occasional blood. I'm good, but I think I'm swallowing most of that, so kind of staying nauseous all day, but it's all good. Anyways, I want to thank everybody that's here tonight. I want to thank all the subscribers. I want to thank all the members. I got scalded the other day saying that I don't thank the members or the subscribers. Saying I never think. I thought I did. So maybe if I haven't done a good job of that, I apologize. But I do thank every single one of you that tune in. And like I said, it kind of blows my mind that people come and hang out. But I do appreciate every single one of you. And then the same guy complained about the members' videos. The members' videos will be eventually for everybody. That bothers some of you. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. You know, so that's what I thought. But anyways, since he complained, tonight we're going to dedicate the member shout out to him. He's not a member. I guess he was upset that I had members' content. So this is the Terrence Gratham members only shout out. I appreciate you, buddy. So let's start. Amanda W. 1169, Amy Allo, Backwoods, Forever Jets, Kev 2917, Unfortunate Cowboys fan, The Lowdown Florida, Tank Therapy, MG 285, Terry Carter, Pamela Sue, My Nature, Jerry Cahill, Jimmy Barwick, God Dan, BPD, Old Tom Bombadil, Brooke Williams, Z Kugler, Varmint 62, Lou 1P, Tracy Stanley, Wendy Hewitt, Ted R. Thomas Jr., Josh Rickley, Rhonda Lee, Jim Fox, Jason Williams, Marcus Critical, Sean Rathbone, Laura Walker, Truckin' Jake, R. Goddard, Todd Porterfield, Cody 2102, Jesse Strancher, AVT Prepper, Florida Skunk Ape, Jerry Brandenburg, Robert Fuller, Squatchin' Granny, Pop Smoke, The Orb Enforcer, Eugene Page, Chrissy Michelle, Eric Fitz, Dean Pollard, RDL 29073, Larry Sharp, Windwalker, Zuli, D. Villaro, STV Walden, North Ward, Jackie, J. Rich 850, Brian Davis, Busby, Jason and Stacy, Flat Rock, Hartgrove Meacham, Daniel Smith, Christina Cryptids, Rachel Garrard, and Blood Wolf. Thank you all so much for being members of this channel. Terrence Gratham, or however you say his last name, he dedicates that shout out to y'all. So, we're all good in the neighborhood. All right, so I know I said I was going to put this FWC interview up, but the audio is really trash. And I keep messing with it, and I keep messing with it. I'm going to put it up, members. Y'all get to see it. It's just me talking to an FWC officer. Audio is not the best. It's a real big letdown for me right now. I know I kept saying, hey, I'm gonna have it out in a few days, and I just was like, man, I can't put that out. But I got it to where I think it's okay. And so I'll put that up. And then I think we're about to drop some of our short films. And I will be having the investigation from last weekend, probably a 10-minute video on that, where we went to Jimmy Barwick's and Earl Clinton's sites in South Georgia. Kind of glad we did go when we did, because there is a massive fire blazing in South Georgia right now. So hope we get some rain. We are so bad off here. It's starting to become an issue. My county is 85% national forest. So if that forest goes, we done out here, people. We done out here. We'll see. All right. Without further ado, let's bring on Coach Kennedy. I don't know why he goes by Coach yet, people. We're going to find out. I think maybe he's a coach, or he's a fan of the show Coach. Which one do you think it could be? Do you think he's a fan of the early 90s show Coach, and that's why he's named himself after it? I don't think so, people. We're going to find out right now, though. Let's bring on George Kennedy. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
So do tell me, are you a coach?
Yeah. head football coach for several years. Coached a little basketball.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. What age groups do you coach?
I coached high school football.
Okay.
And now I've also coached middle school, high school girls basketball, a little bit all of it.
Okay, right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, my buddy does it. My dad used to do it when I was a kid, and I always wanted to do it when I got older, but I don't have the time, and coaches don't get a lot of credit. You only hear about a coach in like if it's something bad goes on.
Yeah.
Like he smacks one of them. It's the only time you hear about it. Other than that, you never hear about these people who don't get a lot of money, if they get any, to go coach kids at the rec park or something like that, giving these kids an outlet besides the streets, I'm being serious about that.
Yeah.
High school football and middle school football saves a lot of kids from getting in trouble.
Absolutely, man. That's why I did it. But honestly, I ended up having to quit a job because the head football coaching job at the high school took so much time. And I was probably the first 2 years, I'm not exaggerating, 80, 100 hours a week, trying to rebuild everything. It was tough. We got it where we wanted it to.
Yeah. Well, so you had some Bigfoot stuff go on.
Right.
When did all this start?
Well, after I retired from my job, I moved back to southern West Virginia in the early 2000. I don't want to say early, 2008, 9 in that time. And things were happening, but we didn't quite know what was going on. A lot of stuff happening around the house, things missing, stuff hitting the house all hours of the night, stuff going through my trash, not a bear. And I just, Bigfoot never crossed my mind. Honestly, it was the furthest thing from my mind. I was thinking of human beings and people. But I live in the middle of nowhere, so it could only be, one or two people. And they were in their 50s at the time, and they were married. But I had an eyewitness encounter on my property, and some strange events led up to it. And it was a life-altering experience, man. I mean, it totally shook my world and kind of messed with me for about probably a good year. I developed PTSD, most likely. I got to where I wasn't even going to yard.
Well, what led up to that? Like, walk me through the lead up and then the event, brother.
Okay, we during this summer, it was the summer it was probably from May through July of 2009. When I moved back here, I got about 1,000 acres of land I leased to hunt and to ride four-wheelers and camp. And I'd been taking care of it, had several food plots out. Well, my wife came down with an illness, and she got in a really bad kidney stones, and they went in and busted them up, but one of her kidneys got lacerated, which we didn't know. And she got extremely sick and was in and out of the hospital for months, about killed her. So during that time, I was at the hospital all the time. And she was touch and go, went into a coma, very young, is what saved her. But finally get her home, and I was a nervous wreck, man. We had young kids, and we were sleeping in the car and all that. And when I'd gotten her home, I'd kind of neglected going out on my hunting lease, kind of neglected all that. I was just focusing on her. And I'm thinking she hadn't been home maybe a day or so. And I wanted to kind of get out in the woods, man, just kind of decompress a little. But I didn't want to leave her. But she said, no, go ahead. So I went out and I checked all of my corn feeder sites, and they were all torn to pieces everywhere. Now, of course, the first thing I thought, bears, maybe humans. I found one in particular that had been disassembled, almost like with hands. But looking back, I say that at that time, I never thought hands, but I thought, how did something tear this all apart without tearing it up? It was disassembled. And there was brown hairs all over it. And it was a new 250-pound feeder. So I brought it home that night. I got home that evening. My wife came out on the porch, asked how I was doing. And I told her, I said, well, I had fun, but something tore up my feeders and one of them's got brown hair all over it. She said, huh, what do you think? Well, I said, I don't know. My answer was, well, coyotes, but coyotes would chew. I said, some black bears on rare occasions are brown. So I tried to salvage this one because it was new. And I had it up on my porch. She went and laid back down. I'm on my front porch. I'm actually literally sitting within 5 feet of where this happened here. And I was piddling around with this corn feeder motor, just really wasting time, chilling out, trying to, recover from all the hospital stuff. And at that time, we had 2 basset hounds, and they were out in the yard. And I just up the road from me here to my left, I heard what sounded like a mountain lion. The best, and they say there's no mountain lions in West Virginia. I can't say that I've ever seen one. I might have had a fleeting glimpse of one time, but this screamed like the way they describe a mountain lion. And the dogs took notice. And it sounded like it was about 400 yards away to my left and up here, up the top of the ridge. Well, I listened for a little while, went back to working on the corn feeder head. I heard it scream again, sounded a little closer, but still 350 yards. No big deal. So everything got quiet for, I'm going to say, 5-7 minutes. And the dogs started growling and their hair started standing up on their back. And both of these dogs, we had an outdoor kennel for them, and they hated it. They didn't like to stay in it, even though it was huge. They both took off running toward the kennel, and the kennel door was closed, so they couldn't get in the kennel to hide. So they went to an old hole in the ground where I'd uprooted a tree, got in that hole. So clearly they were spooked. They heard something before I realized what was going on. But directly across the road from me over here, up on top of the ridge, and these mountains down here are rugged, man. They're straight up and down. And, we live down in the hollows. It sounded like a pickup truck coming down the hill, tearing through the brush. Now, I'm not exaggerating. Something at that time I thought was a massive rock had maybe broke loose off of a cliff, because we have straight up and down cliffs. I was imagining a several-ton rock had broke loose, and its momentum was carrying it straight down. It was just trashing these trees, coming this, just trashing, creating a trail. So I'm looking, waiting to see this massive boulder coming out of the woods, but it gets right over here to the edge of the woods. And Asplin, a tree company, had came through the year prior and cut a power line. And it stops. The sound shuts down. And I should be able to see this stone, and it should have rolled down to our road here. Nothing. I don't see nothing. I could see a few trees moving back, but then nothing. So I'm looking, and I see movement. Now, I'll explain this the way I saw it and how I tried to process it. I see a large, dark figure come out of the woods. Now, up until a year prior, it was all woods, but they'd come through and they cut about a 30-foot wide path for the power lines. I see what I, in my mind, see a huge bear on its back legs. Okay, I had a dumpster down by the road where I'd set my trash in it. It had a lid on it, and trash company come through and get it. So in my mind, this is a big bear that's trying to get up the courage to come down here and get my trash. It didn't look like a bear, but it had to be a bear. Well, this thing squats. Now, when I say squats, at the time, not on its rump, because I've hunted bears before. I know their characteristics. So in my mind, I was looking at a massive bear squatted on its rump. Now, when this thing squatted on its rump, it was about 60 yards away from me, right at the edge of the thick undergrowth and the clear cut. And it sat so perfectly still that I could see it. And I'm thinking, man, this bear literally is blended in so well. If someone were to walk by there down on the road here, you'd never see it. And it'd be only 30 or 40 feet away. It was that perfectly blended in with the surroundings. Literally, after a few minutes, I got bored and went back to working on my corn feeder, man. Okay, because I even thought I'm going to have to go get bird shot when this thing comes in off the hill, and I'll have to shoot it. Well, it stands up. Okay, when it stands up through my peripheral vision, I see movement because I'm fidgeting with this motor. I see movement, so I look up. Now, when I look up, I'm seeing a clear body of a humanoid figure. We're only talking 60 yards away. This thing is looking at me, and I'm thinking that's no bear. Now, I'm going to stand up and I'll demonstrate what happened. Hopefully I can stay in camera, because this is when it kind of threw me into, man, I didn't know anything about these things supposedly being able to stun you, or I knew nothing about this stuff. But I was 60 yards away. Mind you, I've been a state trooper my whole life. I've been in some pretty tight situations, never lost my nerve. But when this thing stands up, okay, it stands up like this, and then it does this. But it keeps its eyes on me the whole time. And then it starts walking. And as it walks parallel to me. I could sit and point the trail it walked. Probably 70 yards and never took its eyes off me. Now, at that point in time, I was literally froze, man. I wasn't processing what I was looking at other than monster come to my mind. I could have walked in the house. I could have got a cell phone, a camera. It never crossed my mind. I was just completely dumbstruck by this thing. It walks and it gets over to a pine thicket over here. And it lets out the most ungodliest roaring howl at me that it literally vibrated my body. I mean, it shook the percussion off of it. Just, I can't explain it. It was similar to that how that I was so much more powerful, deep, and it just can't duplicate it. Okay. When it did that, something from over here on this other ridge, sounded like good 300 or 400 yards off, yelled back at it. And when it yelled back at it, this thing roared at me again. The whole time I'm sitting there, honestly, I don't wonder I didn't pee myself. I mean, when it roared the second time, it was really loud. Whoa! And as the roar came down, I heard it growl. And for whatever reason, man, it's like my legs started working. And it left into the pines. There's a gas well over here. There's a major deer trail on it. It went that way. I came out of my stupor, and this is how I reacted. I went in the house. This is how stupid I reacted to this. I went around checking my windows to make sure they were locked, and locked my doors. My wife was in the bed sick. I thought, I need to start packing. We're going to move. We're moving tonight. There's a monster on our property. A monster. This is a monster. Okay, now, I've always tried to process and reason. I sit down and say, there's no such thing as monsters. So here's in my mind at that time, I said, I know, while I've been going to the hospital, Hollywood has come down here and they're making a horror movie on my property. And I said, that can't be, man. That's just, I live in the middle of no, it can't be. That's not somebody making a movie. Then I thought, okay, I'll call a neighbor. What am I going to tell them? I'll call 911. They'll think I'm crazy. So in my mind, I thought the smart thing to do, we need to pack up and move tonight, because it utterly had me shook to the bones. And I had a 40 caliber pistol sitting on my refrigerator, and that 40 caliber pistol would have been like a gnat bite to it. So I eventually got up the courage to just go kind of talk to my wife. I didn't first tell her, but as soon as she woke up, she looked like death. She said, "Oh God, what's wrong with you? You look like upset." And I said, "Honey, something just happened. We got a monster on the property." And of course, I don't know if she quite believed, but she saw how upset I was. But then I find out through talking to her that earlier, her and my son had been outside, and she was sitting on the porch and he was on the trampoline. And they heard something that sounded similar to what I heard, but it sounded way off in the distance. So I guess it didn't spook her. And she said she comes back in the house, and my son at the time, he was only 5 or 6. He was just a little boy. Shortly thereafter, he comes in from the trampoline and tells his mom, Mommy, there's aliens in the woods. So, of course, she didn't think anything of it. But looking back, chances are that thing was in the area already.
Yeah.
But now, man, I did not process that well. I did not. Because I've hunted my whole life, went out in the woods without a flashlight an hour before day. I literally, I've been in shootings and all that. I've been in standoffs. This gave me PTSD. And I know that now, but I didn't at the time. I was just in denial. But I would get scared just going out in my yard to mow the grass. It was like I felt like, man, I'm going to be attacked by something. And I finally called my buddy who I grew up with. He's an administrator in corrections in another county, and his wife runs a 911 center there. And I talked to him because I needed to talk to somebody. I said, man, you know me, I don't tell tales and I don't make up stuff. And I told him my story, and I said, man, we had a monster on the property. And I said, it scared me to death. And talk to your wife privately to see if she ever gets any calls at the 911 center, because they're just a county over. He says, okay. Well, a couple of days later, he calls me. And he says, hey, man, I checked up on what you're talking about. Yeah. He said, man, you saw a Sasquatch. I said, a Sasquatch? See, a Bigfoot. And I said, man, how do you know that? He said, my wife said they get 3 or 4 reports a month at the 911 center. People call it in. They keep it private. They even went in to tell me about a senator out there that very summer that had a daylight encounter out at a lake out there in Mercer County while walking with his wife. And I guess he called and was on the phone with 911 as this thing was standing in front of him about 15 yards away. And I guess he threatened. He said, if you mention my name, I'll have all your jobs, but you need to get deputies out here. But apparently there had been a man who owned a cattle farm, and he had called in multiple times over the years of these things harassing his cattle. And they were familiar with what had happened to me. Now, that didn't help me to process it any better. It literally took me probably a good year or so, maybe 2, to finally get the courage up to go back out in the woods. And what really, I guess you would say, helped me to overcome it was the fact I started to realize, man, everything I love in life is outdoors. And I've never been attacked or killed or whatever. Now, this thing, I feel like this thing was violent, man. I mean, the way it acted was very aggressive. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, I don't know. I mean, I felt bad vibes, and I felt like it was very aggressive. So that's what, it took me a year or so to come to terms with everything. And then I started diving in and trying to just get information, just dig. But we have had so much, everything that they talk about now that wasn't being talked about then, we've had it all happen here. All of it, to a point, it's the norm for us. We don't even blink unless it's something insane. I mean, we got audio recordings just last week. We got howls and whistles and beating on. It's just that type of environment.
Gotcha. Well, wow. So you went for a minute and didn't even think Bigfoot at all.
Monster.
It's just monster.
Yeah,
you ain't the only person I heard mention that. Now you did say something, and I just talked to this lady the other day, and she said something similar. So you said your legs started working again.
Yeah.
Were they not working before that?
Buddy, I was like a statue. And what's crazy is our academy is 7 months. State police, one of the toughest in the world, they say. And we go back, man, you're taught to focus, departmentalize, you never panic, you reason. My body, everything about me, I was locked up tight. I mean, listen, normal reaction for a human being. When you feel threatened and afraid, you escape. You go away from the threat. You go away from what you're afraid of. I couldn't move. I sat there literally like my feet were nailed to the floor.
So this lady that I talked to, she had a dogman encounter, but she said she couldn't move until she said Jesus's name.
Right.
And then she was freed. I was like, okay, that's odd. And then you just mentioned it 2 days afterwards, after I heard that story. So that's so I brought that up. But so do either one of these illustrations have anything to do with either one of those encounters?
Well, they're actually, that's just ongoing things, man.
Ongoing things.
The all black shadow was one day I was using a chainsaw and cutting some trees out of the road on my hunting property. And the other is,
you want to tell that story? I'll bring that picture up real quick, and you can.
Okay.
Or where do you? Let me stop there. Yeah. Where do you want to go after that? So I guess we should just do this chronologically. So
okay.
Okay. So you find out it's a Bigfoot.
Yeah. All right.
What happens next?
Okay. Started being more aware, but a lot of things that people openly discuss now, they weren't talking about then. I was coaching football. We had a game on a Friday night. My wife and I went and bought a brand new Ford Explorer Limited, really nice vehicle. And we had it parked in the backyard after the ball game in my back driveway. And I've added on to my house since then, but back then we lived in a tiny house, so you could hear everything. Okay, it's about 2 a.m. This was, I don't know, sometime after the one horrified me. I wake up, and it sounds like an argument going on in my back driveway. So the first thing I think, moving from the city to the country, I still have the city mentality. Somebody's getting ready to steal my car. I'm listening to an argument, and the best way I can describe this, one sounded like a really big man with deep vocals. The other sounded like a really big woman with deep vocals, but not quite as deep. And it sounded like the woman was jumping onto the man. The man was literally right behind our vehicle, 15 or 20 feet away from our window to our bedroom. And the female perceiving voice was about 30 feet away from him in our little gravel driveway. Now, they were speaking samurai chatter. That's what it's called. I woke my wife. Okay, when I first started hearing this, I was awakened by them arguing. I waked my wife and said, hey, wake up. She goes, what is it? I said, listen, somebody's out in our driveway. She goes, oh God, what are they saying? I said, I don't know, but I think they're getting ready to try to steal our car. Okay, we start listening. She said, what are they saying? Man, it was doing this. Like they were arguing. And I said, I don't know. She said, sounds like they're speaking Chinese. That's what she said. We'd never heard of samurai chatter. Okay. Right. I keep a pistol 40. I had a 40 caliber at the time. I've got guns everywhere, but I had a 40 caliber by my nightstand. I reach over, get the gun. And as soon as my feet touched the floor, like a switch flipped, silence. Nothing, man. But we heard a conversation going on, and they were talking. And it reminded you of a husband and wife arguing. The guy's going to do something to get himself in trouble, and she's chastising him. That's the way it reminded me. That was something that happened. Okay. It got to a point we'd play our guitar out on our deck at night, build a fire. These things would knock back and forth. And we kind of got used to it. Every now and then we would hear some aggressive howl or whatever, and it kind of spook us. We would go in the house. But there was just a multitude of things that had happened. And then I'll give you a story that happened. I was approached at work sometime after I had my encounter, and I'd started talking about it a little. So word had kind of gotten out. But down here, man, people still, they're a little bit backward about stuff. You know, it's just small town back in the country. I had a woman come to me at work. She was a teacher. After I retired from state police, I got into teaching and coaching. So she says, Mr. Kennedy, could I talk to you? It's important. She seemed very upset. I said, well, sure. I won't mention her name, but I said, sure. Can we talk here? I'd rather go outside. So I was thinking, well, this is bad. God only knows what some kid said. One of the players said I punched him or something, which, you know, I get outside. She says, Mr. Kennedy, did you have something happen on your property? Well, I knew what she was talking about, but I didn't acknowledge it. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, oh, God, did you have something happen to you and it really scared you? I said, yeah, I did. She said, did you know what it was? I played dumb. I said, well, I don't. She goes, oh, God, I know what it was. I said, what are you talking about? She said, Mr. Kennedy, I had it happen to me too. And I know what it is. Okay. She was more or less wanting to get it off her chest and talk to somebody, and at the same time wanting validation. So here was her story. She lives about, as if you were to shoot a laser, probably 2 miles from me. Now, if you drive to it, it's probably take you 30 minutes because, again, we live on wagon roads down here. But about 2 miles as a crow flies, as they say. She said, Mr. Kennedy, the other morning I got up for work and always let the dogs out, dogs or dog, I can't remember, to go use the bathroom. She said, normally I have to holler for them to come back in. They don't like to come in. She said, while they're out, I'll make me a cup of coffee and whatnot. She said, I let them out. I go to make my coffee, and the dog's scratching at the door and whimper. She said, which was odd, but I go open the door. She said, the dog comes in with his tail tucked and runs into the other room. She said, so naturally, I go and look out the window over the hill. And she said, my mom and dad live down the hill from us, and we have a building between our 2 houses, properties, and we keep our 4-wheelers in there. She said, Mr. Kennedy, how tall are you? I said, 6'3". She said, oh, God. She said, I first thought it was a giant man looking in my building was going to steal my 4-wheeler. She said, but he was a whole lot taller than you. She said, he's at least a foot or 2 taller than you. And she said, he was looking down into the window from over the roof. That's how tall he was. I said, right. And she said, Mr. Kennedy, it wasn't no man. I said, what do you mean? She said, it was a Bigfoot. And of course, I tried to talk her out of it. I said, well, now listen, bears will rear up on their back legs and they'll prop their front paws up on a roof line and look down. She said, no, Mr. Kennedy, this wasn't no bear. She said, here's what happened. She said, when I first saw it, I thought it was a giant man going to break in our building. So I went and got my phone and I called Mom. She said, they were still in the bed. She said, Mom answered the phone. And I said, Mom, somebody's trying to break in our outbuilding. How do you know? She said, I just looked when I was taking the dog, let the dog out. And it looks like somebody's trying to get in the building. She said, Mom said, well, listen, go look out the window again. And if he's still there, hang up and call 911. I don't want to wake your dad and upset him. I guess the dad had heart problems. She said, well, Mr. Kennedy was getting daylight. You see better. She said, so I walked back over to look down. And she said, Mr. Kennedy, that's when I knew it wasn't a man. She said, this thing was covered in brown hair. It was 7 or 8 feet tall. And she said, it turned from our building and it walked up the hill on 2 legs. And she was basically crying when she was telling me this. And she said, I don't know what to do. I'm scared to death. We've been having 100-pound sacks of feed carried off. We've been having things missing. And now I know that's what it's been, and I don't know what to do. So that happened. And of course, I tried to reassure her when I'm thinking, hey, you're doing better with it than I did, man. I was horrified to step out in my yard for a year, but I didn't tell her that point. But that was another encounter that had happened. Now, it got to where wood knocks, howls, groans. I've got tracks. The first encounter I had that I know was an encounter and realized what it was, that following Tuesday, my wife got sick again and was back in the hospital. So I was home with the kids, and they were so scared because the mom had been so sick. They stayed in the same bedroom. My little girl slept in the bed with me. My son slept in the cot next to me. And at 2 a.m., man, that same Sasquatch came back. And he was right out here about 70 yards off my property line roaring at me. And I was terrified. I would not get out of bed. I've got 30-06. I got 300 black. Hey, I was glued to that bed. A little girl was crying. My son heard it. And this thing was out there roaring and howling like that. And I was like, there is no way. You could not pay me enough. I was just horrified from it. But what I did do, it was like the following day or a day after I went, my wife got released again. And I had her out walking her down the road just to try to get her out to breathe, get some air. And I went to where I thought I'd heard that thing's howling. And man, we found a track line that went straight up the gas well. I even took a tape measure, and I've got pictures on a memory card somewhere. This was, years ago. This thing had 18-inch tracks, and it had 5, I got one picture that was perfect. It looked like, it was that 5-toed perfect print. Mm-hmm. And I got I wear a size 13. I had and plus there were Rocky boots next to it. It dwarfed my foot. And so that happened. So all of this stuff happened over a period of time. I had that land that I leased with that black shadow figure I drew. What had
Okay,
happened?
hold on.
Okay.
Let me bring that up, and then
Yep.
you can talk about it. Okay, so
Yeah. Now that that is how I saw what I saw. It happened very quickly. I was up clearing some trees out of the road on my hunting lease. And I'd been working for a while. Now I lease from my property all the way up past the river into town to the top of the ridge. And we go down the other side, it's private property. So I was up in there on my side by side. I was off work and I was cutting these trees. And man, I kept getting this overwhelming feeling that somebody was like I was being watched. Now, I didn't think Sasquatch, Bigfoot, because I was making so much noise. What I thought was somebody is hearing the echo of this chainsaw. They're down in the hollow there, and they think I'm probably up here cutting their timber. And I bet somebody's watching me, maybe wanting to confront me to find out what I'm doing. But I could never see anybody. Okay. And I just got this, I don't know, this sixth sense, like something is watching me. And I could never see anything. And I kept looking over my right shoulder to where I felt like it was coming from. So I took a little break, got a drink of water, sat down on my side by side. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to go back to cutting trees, but I'm going to go to the other side of the tree. So I will be cutting with from my left side. And I'm left-hand dominant. And I knew that I would be able to look without having to look over my shoulder. So if somebody was watching me, they wouldn't be able to duck. And I go back and I'm cutting these big logs, and I'm getting the same sensation of being watched. And I look to my left quickly, and that's what I saw. Now, I can honestly say, man, I don't know if it was black or if it was silhouetted in shadow. It was the middle of the day, but it was up against a tree to where I could just see its very edge, and it had its arm wrapped around that. Now, when I looked at it, I once said poof, disappeared. I don't know if it just quickly ducked or what. And I could not tell how big it was. I thought that maybe it was, you couldn't tell, 5-6 feet, didn't know. So the next day, it was either later that day or the next day. My son is right at 6 foot tall. I went back to that very location, and I had him go to that tree as I stood to where I was cutting the logs. And if you can imagine, I was elevated. I didn't realize this at the time. There was a slight drop down, a slight decline to where that tree was. So when he was standing in the same location with his arm wrapped around, man, I could barely see him. I could see like half from his mid chest up was it.
right.
So whatever that was huge. And I've gotten audio recordings. I don't know if you know Russ Jones. He's a guy in West Virginia. I know him through the state police, but does Bigfoot investigating on the side. I had an audio recording that they played on Small Town Monsters that I got from that very ridge. My son and I was up changing trail cameras a couple falls ago.
Mm-hmm.
And man, 3 or 4 of these things I don't know what we interrupted, but they were going crazy. We had whistles, wood knocks, howls. I got one howl that almost goes on for about 13 seconds. And I even had a guy take it and he cleaned it up and he got rid of all the background noise. It's insane. And the trail cam photo I sent you from this past December.
Okay, yeah, let me get that up real quick. Okay, so this is from this past December?
Yes. Now, if you look back in the background, it looks like a white silhouette.
Yep.
And when I first saw that, I thought, well, that's weird, because if it had snowed that night, and typically, trail camera has to detect motion to trigger. So I took that same trail camera picture and I added contrast. I may have sent that one to you to see, okay, if that's a solid figure, contrast, there you go, it pops. So I realized then that's something that looks like it's a bipedal something. So again, I went back to the same place, and but I had to get about 25, 30 feet right there. I had to get well in front of those down timbers and get a lot closer to the camera before it would even trigger on me. And in this picture with my boots on and my toboggan, we measured me. I was like 6'5.5". And if you look at me as compared to that, and it's well behind those trees on the other side of it, it's still bigger than me. And that trail cam picture is within, I'm going to say 150 yards of where I got the shadow man. It's within 70 yards of where I got the audio recordings. The guy played on Small Town Monsters. And I've got other things from over there. Just it seems like it's a real active spot.
Yeah, you need to get an overlay done of these two images. I may do it now that I have them and just send it back to you. But that thing is almost as big as you are, and it's way back there.
Yeah.
It's not close.
The only way we could get a picture even resembling that, I had to get about 20 foot closer, and the camera wouldn't even trigger from the appropriate distance. At about 20 feet closer, it still wouldn't trigger, but my wife squatted down to where the trail camera was and used her cell phone. And then you really see how small I am. It's like, whoa, I didn't even send you that one because, I mean, let's be real, man. People would look at that and go, oh, he's Dr. Who cares? I don't have anything to prove with that. But when I saw it myself, 6'5.5", 240 pounds, and I look like it's a little boy, I was like, that's big. That is something that's big.
Yeah, I'm gonna line those up and send it back to you, man, because that thing is like, it's way farther. But you have the camera is slightly moved.
Yeah,
it's shifted just a little bit, but you can line them up and line the ground up there and actually see how far that image was. Yeah, I'm gonna make that. That's cool, man. Okay, so. Everybody in the chat's asking about the thermal.
Okay.
So let me play this first. Do you want me to play the 53-second version or the 26-second version?
You can play the 53-second one without any explanation. And then I can, because this is the first time I'd ever used a FLIR. And it's why I invested in one after this. So.
Okay. I'll play that one. Here we go.
Now, if you want me to talk, or I can whatever you want.
Hey, go ahead and walk us through what's happening.
Okay, if you see in the foreground here, the white images, that's deer. Okay, I'm looking over a huge field. I didn't know how big till I went back and ranged it the next day. If you look in the background, you'll see a white blob. Now, when you put it on a big screen, it's become.
Oh no! Did I lose him? What happened? Okay, you dropped off, but go ahead.
That thing is bigger than the deer if you look at it. Now, if you see it on a big screen, it has 2 arms, shoulders, and a head.
Right.
Now, at what it is, I watched this thing for a good while until I saw it move, and it actually moved back out of the main area. I had it from its mid shin up. It moved back into the thicket there. And you can see its arm move its head. Now, I watched this for quite a while and got this footage. Believe it or not, from my location to that is 307 yards.
Yeah, that's a ways.
I didn't know it was that far because FLIR depth of perception is hard. I was thinking 150, 180 yards. The nearest deer to it is about 80 yards away. And if you look, that creature is bigger than those deer, and it's 250 to 300 feet off them. Now,
do you think he's possibly in the tree? Because it looks like he's in like the V of a tree almost.
That tree, he's standing behind it and got his arms leaned up. I went to that very tree, tried to take a picture of him. Me and another trooper went up there, did a kind of reenactment thing. You can't even see me. You can see the top of my head there. And
here's the other video, the 26-second one. I think this one.
Classic tree peek that a Sasquatch does. And hey, listen, man, my hands would reach to the top of that brush, and it's popping its head up and down, tree peeking there.
Right.
And it'll lower its head here and again in a second. It does this several times. And there's a lot of backstory to this video. There was a lot more of it, but that's all I've got my hands on.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, if you even want me to bother talking about that or not, but
what's that? Hold on. What one's that? I'm sorry. I was staring at this footage, man. This footage is really good. Like,
yeah,
okay. So, like my take on this, I would just have to see like the site, but, you know, just at your word, I know how big them deer are, right? So you are a ways away.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, it's a living object. You get to see more because it's so far away. It's hard to tell how long the arms are compared to the body, but you do get to see it separate. And see, the thing is, it's one solid color.
Yep, that's it.
You know, so unless you got your old buddy out there butt naked, you know,
nobody was with me when I got this. I was with some people, but I was on my own.
Yeah.
And okay, what I was thinking as a deer hunter, if I was going to hunt a field, you find a place that's a choke point and you set up at the edge of a field and you wait for the deer to move through.
Let's just pause it right there.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Look at that deer right there. The one that's like not up close to us, but the one that's in the field. And then look, the thing you filmed is bigger than that.
Yep.
And it's at least a third. I'd say maybe 2/3. You'd have to see it in the daytime, but that's still a ways away. That's pretty compelling, bro. Like that's your friend, your naked friend would have to be huge.
Yeah, they're right. I went back the next day in the daylight, and the reason this thing never saw me, I didn't use any artificial light. I used a FLIR.
Right.
What I didn't realize at night, I was elevated. I was on a trail, a walking trail. And during the daytime, the walking trail went from my left to right, and there was trees to the side of the trail that blocked a lot of me from the field. But the field was recessed and it dropped down about 15 feet down off that road, and then it was flat. So those deer were 15 feet below me out in that field, and that creature was at the edge of that field at a kind of a narrow point. And what you don't see, if you put it on a big screen, you can see it. This thing will periodically move its head and look to its right and then look back in front of it. There was a deer about 80 yards to its right walking down the edge of the field toward it. So it was clearly looking at this one. It was going to ambush, then looking at the one bedded down about 60, 80 yards in front of it to see if it noticed it. And I guess where I was 300 yards away in complete darkness, was making no sound, it never noticed me.
Right.
And, now, I gathered all this stuff once I went back the following day. And I went out in that field and I went to that tree, and I got there. I could see where stuff was pressed down. If you can imagine the tree, it wasn't but about that round. But it was tall, and I'd say what it's done, it had actually kind of got in behind that tree and kind of put its arms up on it like that, because one of the trees next to it had been hit by lightning. And it was a perfect ambush point, man. It was, and now, there's more footage, but I don't have it. It's like it finally figures out, well, there's a human being or something over there. I see another head to this thing's right come out of the thicket, and it's parallel to it. And man, both of these things, just like special forces guys, how we were trained when we did tactical entry into a house. And if you felt like you had not completely cleared the house, you would back out, leading with your gun. These things backed out, man. They backed out like they were SWAT team members. They did not turn and walk. They literally backed out of there as if and get this, right behind them about 25 yards was the Greenbrier River. So they had the river at their back for safety. They perceived, maybe they figured out I was a threat to their front. They never allowed themselves to lose sight of their targets as they backed out of there. That's what impressed me.
Right.
And then I went back the next day, and it was 307 yards, and you couldn't even see me. You could see if I waved my hands like that, you could see me. And that's
yards or feet?
What is it?
Yards or feet?
No, yards. 307 yards.
Holy shit. That is.
Yeah. 920 some feet.
Yeah. And just think though, they're able to look at you. They don't have no optics.
Right.
But that's how good that eyesight has to be. And I mean, especially at night. Like the one in my dad's video, it's looking right at him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was pitch black.
Yeah.
We had no lights on, so that is crazy, man. So they backed straight out like turkey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw your guys' FLIR because that was famous, more or less. It was on the TV, and that's very impressive. To me, there's no way anybody in their right mind could deny what that is. I had used FLIR for search warrants and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'd never really got out and played with it in the woods. And when I used it during this footage, I realized, holy moly, man, how much stuff I'm missing out here. I would have never saw that. I would have walked right by it. And when I first saw that thing, if you could imagine, it was so stock still. And it's hard to tell depth perception. I thought, is that a rock? Is it a log? It has the body of a human upright, but man, what was throwing me off initially, it looked like one shoulder was smaller than the other, which made me feel like that's not a living being. It would be deformed. I kept watching it to where I thought I saw a slight head movement, but then I thought that's eye fatigue. I would only use one eye, I'd leave the other eye open for night vision. So I dropped the FLIR from my eye, give it a little rest, bring it back up. It's still there. Not moving, but then I see it. I think what I perceive as a head movement again, but I'm still not convinced, man. I'm thinking, nah, I'm just wanting to see this, or my mind's playing games. But I'll show you what I was seeing, and you'll understand by using FLIR. It was standing, rather than squared up to me, it was like this. So one shoulder looked bigger than the other.
Right.
Okay, what it was doing, it would periodically look at this deer to its right coming up the field, and then it would just move its head and look at that one. But here's when I knew I had something. It did this. It looked, and then it goes, and it squared up. When it squared up and those shoulders became symmetric, I knew I was seeing, I wouldn't imagine the stuff. And that is when I could have probably gotten 5 or 6 minutes of video. But, man, I was a greenhorn at it. And I went out and I invested in a super nice FLIR after that because the guy had loaned me one. And then I realized I got to get a FLIR. You're playing games without one. And believe it or not, I got some good footage in Loudon, Ohio. I was asked to go because of the success I had. Some guys said, hey, man, you're an investigator. Seemed like you had a knack for this. I tried to send you the video, but it was too big to download. Now,
yeah, I don't know what was going on with that, but here is the still image from the video. Now, is this video online anywhere that people can go and check it out?
Man, I don't think so. I'll tell you how that came about because I had a guy. He said, hey, there's a husband and wife that's complaining about these creatures are messing with the property. And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, man, you want to go do an investigation. Well, where's this at? Loudon, Ohio. Well, that's 5.5 hours for me. He said, a couple of us going to camp on the property, so forth and so on. Now, I'm all up for camping. So I said, I'll do it on one condition. What's that? My wife and daughter get to go. I was going to go do some tent camping. They said, hey, man, whatever. So by this time, I bought a FLIR and all that. I was taking it serious. So I packed my gear up. This was in March of, it wouldn't have been last year. So it had been March of 24. And man, it was frigid. It got down in the 20s in March out there. But
good Lord.
Yeah, no kidding. I get to talking to the homeowners, and they had this thing beating on their house, roaring, and I said, where generally are you getting the most of the activity from? And she told me, well, they'd all planned to go out like at 11 o'clock that night. So what I did, I told the people that was there, I said, listen, I'm going to go out and do some scouting. I'm going to do a little night walking. I took my daughter with me. And I went to the area generally where she said she was hearing stuff, and they were having issues where it was originating from. And I took no flashlights, just eased on out. Probably didn't get 600 yards, man. My daughter was about 30 feet behind me. She's 17 at the time. Actually, she was not quite 17. But anyway, I get to this certain location. I hear, pow, real loud wood knock. Okay, I stop. I don't say to my daughter, did you hear that wood knock? Because I didn't want to put a thought in her head. I turned around and I said, Grace, did you hear anything? She said, Dad, I just heard a loud wood knock, but I only heard one. Well, I'd only heard one. So rather than keep going, I turned around and I walked quietly back to their property. And I went in. I said, hey, guys, I just got some activity. They didn't really take me serious, but they said, well, we'll bump it up and go out a little sooner. Well, there was a guy there. I can't remember his name, man. I'm horrible with names. But he was a psychologist or psychiatrist or something, and he was from out west. And then they had brought in a guy. I mean, this guy was a high-tech drone guy. He worked for the government or something. He had this super nice drone. I mean, he had to have several $1,000s in it. And man, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I feel like that stuff can be counterproductive. Sometimes if you're out in the woods and you hunt a lot, I mean, you know, game animals recognize strange sounds. So I thought, well, I'm going to go back in the direction I went, and I'm not going to use a flashlight. Well, the psychiatrist guy, he has, hey, do you care if I go with you and your daughter? I'd like to go to where you heard that. I said, sure, man. I said, listen, I don't use any lights or anything. I like to go out quietly and just not try to disturb. He said, okay. Well, we went about, probably 3/4 mile back in there or so. And I'd went up through an old clear cut and up through a logging road, and I topped out on this massive field. And I was using the FLIR, seeing a few heat signatures out, deer, whatever. And the psychiatrist guy starts getting spooked. And he's like, listen, I'm starting to get a bad feeling here. I feel like it's not safe. Well, man, I wasn't feeling that, you know. And honestly, I just thought, man, this guy's he's scared of the dark. I didn't know what to think because we'd just been there. I said, well, let's go a little further. We go, 100 more yards or so. And this field is massive. It was a huge, I guess probably a massive cornfield or something. I don't know what it was. It's up on top of a ridge. And he keeps insisting that he says, I just feel like we're in danger. And it got to a point I'm thinking, okay, whether or not we're in danger, I'm going to be disrespectful of this man if I don't say, okay, man. So I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, I want to leave. I feel like we need to leave. And I said, listen, I'm armed. I always carry 1, 2, 3 guns. I mean, I hate to say that. If I got a backpack, I probably got a blackout with me. I always got a pistol on me. I said, man, I'm armed. He said, I'm not, I don't feel comfortable being here anymore. So eventually I said, okay, we'll backtrack out of here and we'll go, back toward their home. Well, we didn't walk a couple 100 yards, and both the man and my daughter both stopped in their tracks and said, do you smell that? I didn't smell anything. And I said, no. They said, oh my God, you don't smell that. I said, I don't smell nothing, guys. Well, this man, he's like, listen, I feel in danger. I'm out. He peels out. He tears off down the hill toward the logging road. And my daughter goes, Dad, you can't smell that. I said, no, honey, what are you smelling? This is what she said. She said, it smells like wet dog and poop. So I've always heard that these things have an odor to them. Now, I've had COVID so many times where I coached football and all, I don't have any smell, but I got the FLIR and I started looking around. And man, up on the ridge, I see this massive thing there. And it's in white heat, but the video, I get 2 minutes and 30 seconds video of this thing. You can see it turn side profile. Now there, I first thought it was, what it is, it has its back to me. And it's partially over the ridge. We're seeing the top of it, its head and its shoulder. You can see it turn side profile one time. You can see it. It's like it moves its head. Then it walks off, just walks away, and you can see it walk away and out of screen. The whole time I was watching this, I was freaking out. I was like, oh my Lord, what's the chances of this? So when it leaves, I tell my daughter, I said, there's something up there. And again, man, I don't know how far away it was. I never went back and actually, well, I'll tell you why. We leave, I creep down out of there and I backtrack and I go back to the people's property. And I said, hey, I just got some footage. And I think, I don't know if they thought I wasn't serious or what, but the guy had the drone getting ready to fly and all that. And some of them were out back in a field by their house, and they had a bonfire going. They were hanging out. So I said, guys, I got some footage, and they said, well, we'll take a look at it later. Okay. I went and hung out by the bonfire a little bit. Never really mentioned anything more about it. Okay. I'll leave 2 days later. Well, actually, it's the next, I don't know, maybe a day or two. Come back to West Virginia. I completely forgot about that video because they didn't take it serious. So I thought, well, hey, it is what it is. And I'd never really reviewed it because my FLIR requires you to you got to plug it into a laptop, and you can enter into the files that way, and you look at it on your laptop. Well, I was going to go out here using my FLIR at night. So I asked my wife, I said, hey, I'm just learning how to use this thing. Do you care to clear all my practice videos off there? She says, okay. Well, we're sitting in the living room in there, and she's doing it. She goes, oh my God, have you seen this stuff you got from Ohio? I said, well, no, not. She said, you can't delete this. You got to look at this. We get to look at it. I'm like, what the crap, man? You know, and come to find it out, where that thing was, it was up on top of a ridge looking down into the hollow of where those people were at that bonfire. And I think it was watching them. I was down at a good vantage point in that lower field looking up at it. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. The man and my daughter smelled it. I didn't. I would have probably never thought to turn my FLIR on. But that's how that footage came about. Now, the lady had me send it to her, and I did. And she sent it to a guy who stabilized it and let one of these real famous guys that's on TV who have been on a lot of Bigfoot shows and whatnot. He looked at it, and he concluded that either A, I hoaxed, or B, it was legit because of this. Right. Later on in the video, it's either a possum or a squirrel hops up on a tree, literally within 10 feet of me. And then you get an idea of how big that is because it's clear at the top of the ridge, and this squirrel's in front of me, and the squirrel looks like a gnat compared to it. And you realize how massive that thing is. So that was my Loudon experience. And again, I chalk that up to luck. Right place, right time, not doing something stupid to run things off. Now, I don't know. We constantly have stuff go on here, man. I mean, like I was saying, I was telling you earlier, I got audio recordings just the other day here, and I played the one for you. I'm too stupid to know how to. I don't know how to take audio files and make them into something where I can send it to somebody.
Well, hey, play it because you could still hear it.
Okay, I'll play this, and I will give you a little background. The place where I get this howl is the first time that one turned and roared at me. Okay.
Okay.
And I have a camper sitting down there, and I let my buddies come down here and stay in my camper, and they hunt. I've not even went into the details about I had one come and talk to me one night. It said things to me, man. And then my buddy thought I'd probably been hitting the wacky weed or whatever. But he's like, yeah, whatever. He didn't believe me. But a friend of mine is into audio recording. We've gotten some insane stuff at the other end of the county. I'm telling you, some insane stuff. And he said, hey, man, how about I bring one of these recorders down and I'll set it up on your property since you're always hearing stuff. You know, we'll get wood knocks all the time here. I mean, I might go out on the porch right now and get a wood knock. It's like they're always watching this place. So we took it across the road. I call this place over now Bigfoot Flats because that's where that one altered my life. I've forevermore called it Bigfoot. We took it over there and we hung it up about 20 foot up in the tree and just left it. And typically this time of year, we don't get much. It starts to amp up in May. But in 7 days, man, we got some really good audio. But before I play this, I'm going to tell you something that happened with my son last Saturday. We're always having these things coming up and beating on our house and messing with stuff. And it kind of comes and goes in spurts. My daughter, my wife, and me had went camping. This was 2 Saturdays ago. 2 Saturdays ago, we went camping. And we took the camper and we were standing over at Chief Logan State Park. My son's a state trooper, so he has to work. He's working late shift. He gets home at about 2:30 or 3 a.m. And what he does, because he's wearing his vest and all that, he sweats. He'll take a shower, go to bed. I come home Sunday from the camping trip, talking to my son. He goes, man, that's the craziest thing happened last night or night before last. I said, what's that? He said, it sounded like somebody was trying to knock the side of our house in. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I got home 2:30 or so. He said, got undressed, got in the shower. Now, I got a big house, and my house is made out of block and log, so it's sound tight. And he's upstairs on the other end of the house, opposite of the back door. He said, Dad, I was in the shower, and something hit our house so hard toward the back side, I thought that somebody had kicked the door into the house. I jumped out of the shower, grabbed the towel, dried off, and I went downstairs with a gun expecting to confront people in the house. He said, there was nothing there. He said, I don't know what it was, Dad. I said, man, we got a recorder up in the woods. Now, albeit it was 300 yards away, I thought if it was as loud as you say, we might have picked that up with the recorder. Hey, we did. We got it. And believe it or not, he said it happened about 3 a.m. It happened at 2:48 a.m. Saturday before last. And you can hear it. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it when I play it, but you put it on a TV or something, man, it is insane. It goes boom, boom. And something, if it would have been a normal house or a trailer, it would have busted the wall in. But I'll play this how, because this guy sent me this stuff yesterday, and he goes, hey, man, he's got a thing. It's called you'll probably recognize it, spectrogram. Okay.
Yeah.
He puts it in, he runs this audio through a spectrogram, and it measures the decibels and all that. He don't have to sit and listen to it. It'll show the high points of where there's sounds, and he'll go back and listen. And then it will tell you what it predicts made the sound based on the range.
Right.
And this first howl, the software said it was a primate and canines. That primate most likely made the first noted sound, followed by canines. And then and he says, here, I think, is the bang that your son heard on the side of the house at 2:47 a.m. And then I got some weird footage here, man. It sounds like something whistles. And then it sounds like a rodent being attacked or something. Then you hear a whistle again. It's just odd. But I will play the howl to see if I can get it to work. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
There's a scream. I'll play it again, and I'll let it play through. Dogs start going crazy. Now you get dogs. So you hear a howl, then some kind of weird garbled thing, and then maybe another howl. The third one almost sounds like a coyote responding to the howl. I don't know, because it just says primate canine. That's what this spit out to him. Okay, this second one, I don't know if you can hear the house being banged on, because again, it's 300 yards away. You can clearly hear it when you put it on like a flat screen TV and crank it up. But I'll go ahead and play it.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Okay. There it was. Did you hear it?
Yeah, yeah.
Boom. Now the crackling sound, what you hear is there's a little creek, and it's picking up the water.
Right.
And it boom, boom. Now, if you can imagine 800 to 900 feet away, the audio picked up the bang on the house. So he was right in thinking something crazy had hit the house. Now, I'll play this last one here. To me, it's probably some type of known animal, but the whistle at the beginning is what's strange. Man, it almost sounds like a human being whistling, but this happened at 3:32 a.m. Now, if you get on Google Earth and you look at where I live, and you understand my neighbor is a 72-year-old widow woman, and then up the hill, I got one family. He's about 46. He's a major contractor. Him and his two sons are.
I thought you was about to say drug addict.
Oh, hey, no, they like me. No, they're good guys. But I will play this whistling sound here, and and maybe it'll pick up. Now, did you hear that?
Yeah.
It goes. I can't
Yeah.
even do it. Okay, now this thing almost sounds like a rodent or whatever. I don't know. And it whistled again. 2 whistles.
All right.
Dogs go crazy. Something being choked. It's like a rodent being choked. So, again, 3:32 a.m. in the middle of the forest. A whistle that, if I didn't know better, would think a human being whistled. Some kind of weird sound. Another whistle. Then it sounds like a cat or a rabbit being choked. I don't know. All of this was within a 7-day period of us just sticking that audio out. And we get stuff all the time. It's
I had some people ask in the chat if you could play the howl and the hit against the house again.
okay.
They just want to hear it again, right?
right.
Yeah.
I will play it again. You get the point, dog steady, cut a shine. So the howl, and then it's some kind of weird vocalization after that, and then it sets the dogs off.
That howl's cool, man. That's really neat, dude.
And if you can now, man, some of the audio I got, if I could only play it, I've got one. It sounds like a banshee, and it goes, wah, and it goes on for about 13 seconds. Nonstop, just like it has lungs bigger than 50-gallon drums. And I got it up on the hill where I got the trail cam photo. It's my son was with me. Got it by phone. Here's the bang. You got to listen quite closely because you'll miss it. It boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a damn log hit your house and dropped on your porch or something, dude.
Now, I sent you pictures of a fresh track in the mud if you got it. It's wet and filled up with water. I will tell you the backstory behind that. And if you don't have it, I'll tell you anyway, and they can use their imagination.
I do not have it.
Okay.
It was one of them files because like you also sent me your location on Google and I couldn't get that file to work.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll tell you the story, man. It's happened about a year ago. We have so much stuff happening. I've told the kids before, there's been times I have to get up 3 a.m. to go outside the gun, right? Okay. My daughter tells me it was a Saturday. We didn't have school. She comes downstairs. She said, Dad, something happened last night. And she said something sounded like it was tearing the back end of our house down. I said, what do you mean, honey? She said it started about 1 a.m. and it started smacking the back of our house. She said it knocked a picture off my wall. Now, of course, I said, why didn't you come and get me? She said, I was terrified. She said it was going back and forth, smacking the backside of this house so hard and it was knocking pictures off the wall. She said, Dad, I was so scared. I hid under the covers just like a baby. And she said, I was just terrified. I was scared to death. That's what happened. She said, I just sat there and breathed. She said, I could hear it walking back and forth. So I'm thinking, all right, I'll go outside. It was daylight. It's probably 10 or 11 o'clock. I go outside, and luckily it had rained at about 4 a.m. I look around in my backyard. I don't really see anything. You could argue and say, well, it looks like the grass is pressed down, but you could also say, no, it's your imagination. But at the back end of my yard back there, I have a workshop. And it goes uphill. Like I cut out the bank because just about got to do that here. Had the workshop. Then right at 4 or 5 feet from it, it goes straight uphill. And I was just back there walking around, and man, I found crystal clear tracks in the mud. This thing had left the backyard area and did like a straight beeline, right back in, and it walked to the left of my outbuilding and walked up into the woods, and it had left a partial print, a full print, and another partial print. And these were so fresh that by the time I found them, went back down to the house and got my phone, come back, the one that had 5 perfect toes had completely almost filled up with water, and it looks like it only has 3 toes, but it was 5. And what it is back there, there's an underground spring near my workshop, and I had to channel all that stuff away, even have an underground sump pump back there. And luckily, where it had rained, it had made that ground soft. Otherwise, I'd have never seen it. And whatever it was, the tracks were only 13 inches long. So it wasn't a massive thing, but it was clearly a footprint. It had 5 toes. I got 2 parcels and 1 full print. Man, I will definitely get you those pictures. And that coincided with her being harassed all night. And this is, this fast forwards to my son having the side of the house kicked in. And the one picture I have of the thing with its back turned.
Okay, yeah, hold on. I
Okay.
got that one right here.
Yeah.
I'll click on it, buddy boy. There we go.
Okay. I drew that as soon as I walked in the house. Now, there was a boy down here lifting weights, played football with my son. I've got a weight room here at my house. And typically speaking, we would all work out, say, right at 6 or 7 in the evening. They'd be cleared out here by 8 o'clock. But we pulled a late nighter, and we didn't go into the gym until about 10. And by the time they finished up, it was a little bit after 11. He lived right up the road from me, about a mile. And again, man, there's no street lamps, no street light, no nothing here. We're in the middle of the woods. So I had talked to his mom, and I said, hey, I was his coach. I said, when he finishes working out, I'll bring him home. Okay. Well, my wife had a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, and we had it parked in the back driveway. But I've added a garage with bedrooms over top. But at the time, my back driveway was my parking area. So completely out of character for us. 11:30, 11. I don't even know what time I got on that paper. It'll say the exact time I saw it. But
2300.
okay, 11 o'clock. So I was thinking it was around that time. I run him up the road to his house, 3-minute, 4-minute drive, drop him off, and I come back. Now, as I come back and I'm driving up my gravel driveway to turn into my parking area, I would make a hard left. And you're always at a slight uphill grade when you're driving on our driveway. And the backyard is slightly elevated. So as I made that hard left, my lights hit that thing, boom, right in its back. And I saw that. Now, I saw this briefly, and it took a hard step left and literally like, boom, gone, disappeared. It was that fast. Now, this thing was about between 6 foot and 6'5", between 250 and 275, jacked like a middle linebacker for the NFL. It had long hair, probably a little longer than that. This thing looked perfectly groomed, and it had long hair flowing down, and it was a reddish color. This thing was a reddish color. Now, if you can imagine,
Oh no, did we lose him? Oh yeah,
okay,
bud.
man, yeah, I've dropped for some reason.
All right.
Hey, here's another thing. We don't have, I don't have cable internet or anything here. I've got satellite for everything. Again, I was thinking to myself, imagine that, because it happened like that quick. I go in the house, was not going to say a word. As soon as I walked through the door, my wife goes, there's something. I said, why? She said, the dogs are acting crazy. And when I let them go outside to use the bathroom, they wouldn't leave the house. They refused to. I said, where? She said, the back door. I said, I know what it is. I just saw it. And I went and I sat down and I drew that. That's what I drew. If you look to the back there, you'll see that metal building. That is the metal building that a couple years later, I got the real clear footprints in the mud to the left of it. And
right.
that's how I saw it. So we've, here's another thing, man. When I saw this thing that night, again, it was completely out of character for my routine. We left and we went on a mini vacation the next day. When I came back home, This was not a coincidence. I didn't know much about tree breaks. I still don't, but I've listened to guys talk about them. Right here off my front porch, up right at the edge of where I quit weed eating and it hits the hardwoods, there was a tree broken, snapped about 7 feet off the ground, and it was bent right toward my house. It was the very first tree at the edge of the weed-eated area going into the woods, and it was broke toward the house. No way Mother Nature did that, because if wind would have caused it, it would have had to been gale force winds. They would have came down off the top of the ridge and would have took out all the trees. Not one single tree was damaged except for the very first one closest to the house. It was broken, pointed right toward me. And it was broken off at about 6 feet high. I took pictures of it. I drew a sketch of it. I don't know what I did with it. I mean, this was a few years ago. And I feel like that was one was kind of related to the other in one way or the other. I don't know how, but I do feel that. And man, listen, I could go on talking your ear off about so much stuff that's happened here. Stories.
Well, so you're obviously, you don't go nowhere there. You live with them.
Yeah.
And they're up there a lot. How often would you say is it? Because a lot of the places that have the activity, it almost seems seasonal, or like certain times of the year it'd be more, but like at this place in Alabama, and here's another thing I don't know, right? Because there will always be activity the day after we leave.
Yeah.
Right. But then again, there won't be activity for weeks, and then there'll be activity again, and so I wonder if they ain't always there, because it's like every time we leave, something goes on. But how often do you think they're coming up around your place, or just in the area? How often do you think they're around?
It's really heavy from May through November.
Okay.
Now, but when I step back and I look at it from if I look at it as an investigative perspective, is it heavier from May through November because that's the season when I'm outside more and I notice more. And then when it gets colder, I'm indoors because we got snowed in down here. And my wife, this was in February it might have been last year. We had a lot of snow last year. This is what's odd, that we were going to go dig ourselves out because they'd canceled work. And it was about 10 a.m. it was either January or February of last year. And we walked on our back, we come out of our back area, and up on the hill here, there was a wood knock. And we had never had anything like that happen before. Well, one of our cars was down the road there in a snowbank. We was going to go try to dig it out. We walked down the road with the shovels. We get to our car, there's another wood knock. Now, it seems like there's two here that watch us. And I tested that theory last year and I kind of concluded that I proved there was two watching us, because I got a really big A-frame porch that I built, just sit and look out into the woods in the yard. And if I go out there and I sit on the porch for a while, typically I got an outdoor couch. I'll get up and I'll walk to my left and I'll come back here through this door behind me, which is my kitchen. I'm working on the house. I build everything myself, so I'm slow going. So that's my routine. Sit out there, walking here to my left. The first time I got a wood knock after building this new porch, I got up, and instead of walking to my left, I decided to walk down off my steps in front of me to go down to the road to check my mailbox. And as soon as I walked to the steps, I got a knock right across the road where all that stuff happens. And I thought, whoa, okay, now you think, okay, maybe you got a wood knock, so you're going to test that. You give it a day or two, you do it again. I got a wood knock. My daughter and her boyfriend were out there sitting on the porch, and my daughter comes in and says, Dad, there's something out there wood knocking at us. It's done it twice. Okay. Well, late October this past year, my son and I were sitting out on the porch. It's after dark. Well, right at dark. And I have a fire pit out there, and I was just chilling out. We get up, and as soon as we stand up, I cleared a stink wood knock again across the road. And my boy goes, Dad, that had to only be one thing. you know, you'll hear a tree branch break and you'll hear it fall. It was a wood knock. Okay, so then I thought, I'm going to test my theory. I was putting out apples over there for him. I got into a routine. I'd walk down the steps, go down my yard across the road, go up on the hill where that thing roared at me, put out apples. I'd always come back, they'd be gone. I'd hang them up about 7-8 foot up in the tree. Well, 7 foot. I can't reach 8. I probably can reach 8. 7.5 foot. I'd stick them on broken limbs. They'd always be gone. I got in that routine of doing that. And I would always put the apples out. Then I would turn and walk back the way I came. I did that for about a month. And I thought, okay, I'm going to check to see if there's more than one watching me, because they know this is what I do. And that's part of my norm. And every time I break my norm is when I get a knock. But all the knocks were always coming from across the road. So
Right.
I put the apples out at the place I always do. And rather than turn around coming back, I made a sharp right and was going to cut on up the hill to the other, keep going that side of the property. And man, lo and behold, on this side of the ridge over here, there was a wood knock. So that told me that they were watching me from both sides. And the one from across the road had the best vantage point. If I were to go over there and take a picture, you could see our front porch perfectly. It could see us if we were doing anything to move down into a blind spot for the other, so it would always knock. When I moved in a different direction to go toward the one that was watching me, the one that I thought was there but I never heard, it made itself known and made a wood knock to warn its buddy. That's my theory.
Well, now how many do you think that are there? Because obviously you got a 13-inch, and so you probably got some different age groups there.
My wife saw one that was coyote colored. She explained, like a grayish brown. There's a dark brown, almost black one. There is a red one and a brown one that I know of. The one that about said her name, the one that the teacher saw was a big brown one. It could be the same one we've seen.
And how far away was she from where you are?
Man, if you were to shoot a prism, a laser, 2 miles, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
it's
an evening stroll.
She's right up on the hill. Now, she also is in close proximity to my hunting lease too, because these mountains down here are so rugged and straight up and down. I might say, hey man, let's go over to this place here. Well, how far is it? Well, according to my GPS, it's only 400 yards. That might take us an hour and a half, because you got to go down and traverse and through a creek and back up the straight up side of the mountain. So close proximity for us takes us a while, but it's close. That's why patterning deer down here tough, but yeah, all these things have happened in close proximity. And we even had a school bus driver down here report one jumping on the roof of her bus.
What?
Yeah, man. Okay.
Tell me that, brother. Tell me that.
Man. This, as the crow flies, if you go from my house and you hit that gas well that I'm always talking about, where I had the recorder, you go all the way up to the top of the ridge. The top of the ridge shares a property line with Panther State Forest. It's 13,000 acres of state forest. There's only about 10 or 12 houses there. Okay. We still live in an area, man, where buses don't drive and pick up the kids. The kids walk out of the holler to get on the bus still here. And down here in the park, there's this place called George's Fork Hollow. And there's this big cave that's called the Devil's Den. And the old timers used to say that the devil lived in the Devil's Den, some monster. We thought it was just folklore. But the bus driver, what she would do every morning, she would back up into the beginning of George's Fork Hollow and just put her bus in park, turn it off, and she would read and wait for the kids to walk out of the holler and get on the bus. Well, one morning, she's sitting there reading with the engine off, and she hears what sounds like somebody coming off the hill from the woods. So she's perceiving it's one of the kids playing a prank. Now, that old road down there that goes up into George's Fork Hollow, if you can imagine, man, you have our mountains come down like that. And then typically what cuts a flat spot will be the creek. So they'll go right beside of the creek, go about 8 foot above it, and they'll try to cut an old road. So if you're driving that road, you can almost reach out and touch the hillside. It's just straight up and down. Well, she was parked there. She hears something coming off the hill. She thinks it's one of the kids coming out of the hall trying to play a prank. She steps off the bus and sees what she describes as a large hair-covered creature coming at her. She freaks out and turns to get back on the bus. This thing is running. As she jumps into the driver's seat, she feels the thud. This thing jumped onto the roof of the bus from the edge of the mountain. Okay, she panics so bad. She throws it in drive and takes off. And she drives out of that hollow and goes all the way back to the bus garage at our little town up here called Yeager. That's where the bus garage was. And she pulls in and is freaking out. She won't get off the bus. The chief bus driver, his name was Estewalvel, he comes and tries to get her out of the bus through the window, saying, "Get her." And she's convinced this thing, she's panicked. She thinks it's still on the roof. She's screaming in hysterics. There's a monster on the roof. There's a monster on the roof. Okay, they finally get on the bus, get her calmed down, and get her off that bus. She says, "I quit. I will never drive a bus again," because she thought that she'd hauled that monster back to the bus garage with her. She was so freaked out. Okay. Estewalvel's dead now, but his son is a mechanic up here in town. He'll tell you that story to this day. It was even in a local newspaper down here. Bus driver claims this.
Wow.
Yeah. I forget. They called it the red eye. That's the red eye. That's what it was called down here. And I had a student that I taught in high school, and I was telling that story one day. And a girl spoke up and said, "Mr. Kenny, I don't believe you." I said, "Well, you know what?" Unless she said, "No, I don't believe you." I said, "Why?" She said, "I live at George's Fork Hollow." And I said, "Have you ever had anything happen?" "No." "You ever heard that story?" "Never have. And I've lived there my whole life." I said, "What about your parents? They've lived there." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, go home and ask your dad about it. See what he says." She said, "I know what he's going to say. He would have told me something like that. I lived there. That didn't happen." "Okay, just go ask." Well, the next day I'm walking down the hallway as school starts, and the girl was walking by me, and she was, "Mr. Kennedy, I hate you." By that, I'm like, "Yeah, I'd forgotten." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I went home and asked Dad about that, and he said it was true." She said, "And then he told me a bunch of other, She said, "Then he told me a bunch of other things that had happened that you didn't know about." She said, "The whole family knew about that." I said, "Really?" I said, "Why are you mad at me?" She said, "I still walk out of that holler to get on the bus." She said, "Now I'm scared to death to walk to get on the bus."
I bet she is.
Yeah. So I said, "Hey, well, you've not been hurt, but there's families down here that can confirm that."
Yeah.
And now, as where I live, I'm only about 4 or 5 miles, again, as a crow flies, right across the mountain. And that thing happened, and it was documented. It was in the local paper. And I had 2 friends that I played football with. We all went to college and played football. We used to work out together in high school. This is before really.
Now, how big is this town?
It's tiny. There's probably 300 people. That's it. It's tiny.
Okay. And so how many of them do you think have know about this kind of stuff?
Here's what's crazy. I'd had no idea until this happened to me. And like I said, I went into withdrawal from it. About a year later, I wanted to find out. So many people have stories about this. They call it the red eye. They call it the booger. They call it the devil. And one of them called it the monkey man. And they all can tell you these stories that are just common knowledge. The red eye got its name because his eyes glowed red.
Yeah.
The booger got its name because the guy was chased out of my hunting lease before it was ever a hunting lease. He was up there making out with his girlfriend before he married her. This thing come out of the woods and started chasing her car. And he says, the devil himself, it looked like the devil himself out of hell chased me out of that holler. And he said, "I will never go back there." Okay, the locals started calling that holler Booger Man Holler. I had no idea. They call it Booger Holler today. And,
wow.
and it's and because of that incident, and that's part of my hunting lease. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And the Jason Thompson, he's a really successful coach. He's coached Elkton and everywhere. He was a junior and I was a senior. We were all big boys. They'd come up and we'd work out. They pulled in my driveway one day, and man, I had completely forgot about this until I was reminded later in life when this happened to me. But Jason Thompson, he was bawling like a baby, panicked. And my buddy was, Wesley was driving. Jason was in the passenger seat. Jason was freaking out in full panic. And for him to be a junior in high school, he had a beard not quite as good as yours, but it was, he was a big old mountain man. And to see him blubbering and crying was kind of, I said, man, what is going on? And Jason started saying, oh my God, we almost hit a Bigfoot. We almost run over a Bigfoot. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Bigfoot was not on my, that's something we never talked about. He said, man, we almost hit a Bigfoot. So what's he talking about? Literally that same gas well right down here. If you talk to the guy and interview him, he'll tell you to this day. He said, there's not a day goes by I don't think about it. This was in 1989, man. I'd forgotten about it.
Wow.
My buddy used to have a bad habit of driving fast. And this road, if you drive over 25, you're speeding because it's just a little old country road. But he would drive 50, 60. I guess he was getting it up this road. And Jason said, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye to my left. This thing come down off the gas well. And he said, it was full bore coming off that gas well. And he said, it looked like we were going to run over it because as it was going to cross the road, we were going so fast, we were going to hit it. This is later in life. In the beginning, he was he was bawling, didn't want to leave. He wanted somebody to, I don't know, fly him home in a helicopter that day. But Jason later told me, he said, this thing, when it ran, it was almost like it was paranormal that we didn't run over it. He said it come off that hill, and as it stepped into the road, we were going to make impact with it. And he said how we didn't hit it, I don't know, but it crossed in front of our car. He said, and dude, I'm not exaggerating, its side profile was half as wide as our car. He said, and it was brown. He said, and it was moving like supernaturally fast. He said it crossed the road in about 2 strides, jumped the creek, and they watched it go up the side of the hill down here on all fours. He said it hit, which would be normal because it's so steep. He'll tell you that story to this day because I don't know if I just forgotten about that or what, but when it happened to me, my mom was still alive. And it really bothered me when I started talking about it. She said, well, you remember what your buddy said that time that they almost run over that thing? And I said, I don't refresh. She said, yeah, Jason and Wesley. And then I remembered. So then I got up with Jason. I said, hey, man, do you remember that time you guys claimed you almost run over a Bigfoot? He said, absolutely. I said, do you remember that? He said, man, there's not a day goes by that I don't think about that. He said, I see it today like it happened just yesterday. And he relived the story for me. So you get to talking to people, man, and you realize that it's been going on for decades down here. And
wow.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I shouldn't put this into your head, but I always ask the people that live with them this question.
Yeah.
Are you worried about them trying to come in your house or possibly looking in your window?
There was I used to kind of feel like,
because I would be scared shitless. Like we leave the door open sometimes to, let the house air out. But good Lord,
I used
brother.
to feel like they were more interested in my daughter and my wife, if that makes sense. I don't know why, but
I'm sure they're prettier than you are.
Oh yeah.
Damn, and then we froze up again. Oh no. Come back to us. Oh man. He's from West Virginia, Philip Miller.
Hey,
all right, he's back.
Hang up on you, man, because you told me I was ugly.
I was like, damn, I make a joke and then it just right there, bam.
But all jokes aside, my wife was cooking on the grill last summer on a Sunday. She comes in the house. She goes, do you hear those wood knocks? I said, no. She said, it's wood knocking nonstop. So I walk out on the porch, silence, nothing. I said, I don't know, honey. She goes, oh my God, I heard like 6 of them. Well, I go back in I was watching a race or a ball game, whatever. She comes back in. She said, it's doing it again. So I said, are you serious? She said 3 or 4 times. And it's coming from the same area over there. So I get up, walk back out on the porch, nothing. Don't hear sound. She said, that don't make any sense. She said, every time you come out here, it stops. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to go back in the house. I'm going to sneak and raise the window up, and I'm going to sit near the window. But it'll look like I'm back in the house. The door will be closed, but I'll be able to hear. So I did. Lo and behold, as soon as I shut the door, walk and sit down with the window open, whop, whop, I hear the wood knocks. Walk back outside, silence. Okay. I go back in, wood knocks. So now I'm thinking, okay, one of them's got a crush on my wife. And I then, okay, you got to eliminate any knowns. Could it be a tree that's systematically falling over and it pop, 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 stop? Pop, 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 stop. And I just so happened to be going in as it started popping again. So here's what I did. I said, I'm going to rule out any possibility for a natural explanation. I had a new mailbox I need to put up, and I need to concrete it in the ground. I said, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to dig a hole, mix the concrete, put this mailbox in the ground. I'll be out there 2 hours. If this is a natural occurrence, I will have to hear it, because she had heard 20 wood knocks, not one single sound the whole time I was out there, which tells me, I don't know. And she's also had them, when I say whistle at her, not like type whistle, but like wanting to get her attention. And she'll go out to get the dogs, one will be up on the hill, and they'll whistle. I had one in the middle of the day. I was sitting here in the kitchen working on I was taking some master's classes. I actually took a day off work because I was behind on some of my work. And man, one right out here at the edge of the yard, right up in the woods, did that classic whoop, just as clear as day, and I heard it through the windows. So, yes, we've heard the samurai chatter. I got to tell you about the one talking to me, man.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. My buddy and his wife come down every fall. He bow hunts down here. We got monster bucks down here. It's bow only. The dogs are barking. I go out on the porch and I hear the hey ya. Did I tell you about that? Okay.
You did.
And I'll tell you.
You haven't told the people about it. So
okay. All right. I'm thinking my dogs are barking and going crazy inside their kennel in the house. So I'm thinking maybe my buddy's wanting in the house and he's knocking on the door because he is staying in my camper. So I get up, go to the door.
Oh no. Damn it. We get right in this story. This is the problem when you live with Bigfoot. You usually live in the sticks. There he is. Okay, you get up and you go to the door.
I'm sorry. And walk out on my porch to see if it's my buddy. My camper's about 100 yards down the road in a bottom. I can see they're in the bed. It wasn't him. I'm going to be blunt. I'm just tell you how this happened to keep it real. I live in the country. It's 2 a.m. I've been in a bed. I decided to take a whiz off the porch. Okay. I walk to the edge of my deck. It is mid-November, 2 a.m., overcast, no visibility. I don't have a flashlight. Why would I? I was going to go check on my buddy. Something about 30 yards up on the hill goes, hey, ya, just like that. And immediately I stop and I look in the direction of where that vocalization came from. And I'm probably looking it right in the eye, but I can't see it. But it goes, hey, ya, hey, ya. Okay, it spooked me. I did an about face. I went in the house. I could not, it sounded like words, but a language I didn't understand. According to what I could find out by looking at Cherokee, Shawnee language, that was saying, leave. Get out of here. I'm warning you. According to the interpretation of it. I told my buddy, I went down the next morning to check on my buddy and his wife. I wasn't going to mention it to him. Okay. Knock on the door at 9 a.m. Come on in. I walk on in the camper. I said, you guys sleep okay? Christina, his wife, goes, I didn't sleep a wink. I said, the bed or something? She goes, no, something was outside all night making noise. I said, what'd you hear? She said, I can't explain it. It sounded like just these weird noises. I said, what did it sound like? She goes, I can't explain it. I said, did it say, hey, she said, oh my God, that's what it was saying. And she said, Doug don't believe me. He's a heavy sleeper and he wouldn't wake up. And he's like, well, he didn't believe it. I said, Doug, I'm telling you, man, we got Bigfoots in the woods here. he's a lieutenant in state police. He's retired now. But he's like, yeah, whatever, Okay.
Right.
At the end of the week, that Saturday, this was probably a Monday. That Friday night, he takes his wife back home. He comes back Saturday. He's going to hunt Sunday. You can hunt on Sundays here. And I had told him, I have propane to heat the camper. I said, hey, man, let the tank run dry. Because if you don't let it run dry and let where it's not blowing heat, if I go to get it filled up, they charge me for a full tank, so run it dry, then flip them over. He said, how this story came about, I looked down that morning at about 11 a.m. He was in camp down there. In camp. He's at my camper, which was weird. He normally stay on standard at least noon. So I thought maybe he's got him one. So I went on down and said, hey, man, do you have any luck? Well, I decided not to go hunting this morning. I said, what's up? Were you messing with me last night? I said, what are you talking about? I had no idea. I said, what do you mean? He said, about 3 this morning. Were you messing with me? I said, what are you talking about, Doug? No, man, I was in the bed. Now, when I heard the hey ya was 5 days prior, okay, now he's asking me, were you messing with me last night? I said, no, man. Are you sure? I'm positive. Was your son? I said, Doug, at 3 a.m., we're in the bed, man. What happened?
Yeah.
He said, okay. I woke up at 3 a.m. and it was real cold in here in your camper. He said, so I knew that the tanks had run out. I need to go switch them. He said, but I was going to get up at 4 to go hunting anyway. So I thought, man, I'll just cover up good and tough it out for the next hour. He said, then lo and behold, I realized, man, I got to go pee. Well, I don't have plumbing hooked up down there. So he said, I was trying to sleep, had to pee. So I thought, well, heck, I'll get up, go outside and take a whiz, and I'll go ahead and flip the tank over. He said, so I went outside and my tanks are facing toward the road. And then the backside of my camper is kind of toward the creek. There's no trees around it. I've cut them all back. He says, I went to flip the tanks. He said, you had deer over in your yard on the hillside and they were snorting. He said, I first thought they were snorting at me, but they were looking over toward the mountainside back in behind her, same place where I got the audio recordings. He said, like they saw something that had spooked them. They weren't even looking at me. He said, I didn't think nothing of it. He said, I switched the tanks. He said, I started walking around to the back of the camper to take a whiz. And he said, and something went, hey, ya, to him. He said, I stopped dead in my tracks. He had a little pin light. I said, I'm shining a light, don't see nothing. He said, it barely shined across the road. He said, this thing did it again. Hey, ya. He said, you know me, I did it back to it. He said, I looked at it and went, I looked at the area it came from and went, hey, ya. He said, and the way it acted like I had got it mad. He said, because it's like its vocal changed. And he said, it went, hey, ya. And he said, when it did that, man, he said a stick whizzed by the side of my face and barely missed me. He said, I realized, man, what you're telling me is true. There's no way to explain that stick. There's no trees there. He said, and it flew from in front of me and passed by my head and landed behind me. And he said, I have to say, I'm starting to believe you. I said, I told you.
Right.
And, that really spooked him because he heard it. And then he had it throw something. It had it thrown off.
Well, here's the funny thing is like the ones that lived or that would visit the neighborhood in Mayaca that I used to research would say, who you hey? Who you hey?
Who you hey?
And hey, brother, I got this on a damn interview that predates me talking to you by like 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And this guy would say that shit and it would come up. He could call it out of the swamp, and he did it one time. We had an expedition down there. There was like 25 people. Half of us were gone, and some of us were cooking, but there were probably 10 still at the camp.
Yeah.
And he said, "Who you hey?" And he waited a few minutes, and he said it again. And this little kid had a thermal and like shined, and it was standing there. And so the kid drops the thermal, and it wasn't the kid's, like it was somebody else's. And the kid picks it back up. This other guy who owned the thermal's like snatching it from the kid. And then you just hear this thing take off through the damn woods.
Yep.
By the time the adult got it, it was gone, but it just tore through the damn woods. But yeah, the language, you saying that's really not the first time I've heard that, and we experienced that down here.
I got another one for you here, man. Now, the Shawnee interpretation of mine was like, leave, get out of here. Buddy of mine who's used a recorder over there, he just got one that said, it sounds like Alta. And I'll try to play it for you. This is about a month ago. I don't know which version of this. I'll go ahead and play it. I think there might be a knock, and if you got to listen real closely, I'll go ahead and try to play it. You hear it? Oh, yeah, I did. Let me do it again. You hear it? Oh, yeah, I did.
Yep.
Now, you'll hear a knock here. Now you can bear, but hey, it sounds like it goes, all right, take, and it's real fast. And if you put it on a real loud, or you put headphones on, it goes, all right, take, boom. And we've got that, and we've got this, hey-ya.
Right.
And according to Ayate in Shawnee or Cherokee, but Shawnee, it's interpreted as, hey, let's speak in Shawnee. No
Wow.
joke, man. Yes.
Now, is Shawnee a local native?
It is.
To where you're at? Okay, yeah, because like we had to look up like Seminole language and Creek and Muskogee.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude. That's
If you can imagine, okay, right down the road here, we have Mohawk, community of Mohawk. We have Horse Pen, we have Panther. I live in Panther. We have Isaban. We have War Eagle right down the road. All of these that's the names of the communities. So it gives you an idea of how deep the Native American culture is here. And to hear these things, man, I'm telling you, when I heard that, I wish I would have not freaked out when that happened to me, because I don't know. It's just, you don't know how to process it. The more you have it happen, the less you get scared by it. But I'd never had one of those actually just like speak to me. And here's the thing. The average person out there would go, man, this guy is crazy. He smokes crack. Hey, I have been an expert witness in federal court multiple times. I won the U.S. Attorney's Office Investigator of the Year twice. I have won Trooper of the Year. I was McDowell County Teacher of the Year. I say all of that because I realized, man, I'm not going to quit not talking about this anymore. I used to feel like, first of all, I was crazy. I was scared to death. And I was like, but hey, you can't have stuff like this. Explain it to me then. I mean,
right.
How I'm getting all this stuff, how all this stuff is happening, and this not be real. Now, I do think there's things about these creatures that we don't understand. There's things that they do that defies our way of physics and just normalcy, because we have had them crawl up to us. And my wife is a very level-headed person. She's got her master's degree. She's got her administrative degree. She's working on a nursing degree. And she's just an old country girl who's educated, level-headed. We have had these things crawl up to within 10 yards. You can tell they're belly crawling, walking to going down to all fours and crawling to try to get as close to us as possible. And I messed up one night, and I took a Gen 1 Plus night vision, and I shined it, not knowing that those put out a beam if you can see in the dark. And there was nothing there, man. I mean, if there was, listen, I should have seen a massive something, and there was nothing there.
So what do you think they are?
I don't know. I'm going to give you some theories. And I say this listening to other people talk, and then what's happened to me. These things can cloak or something. And now what I mean by that, I heard a guy who was an outfitter talk about how he was scouting for some new areas to fish I don't know, in Canada, wherever. And he says he comes around a bend and the water was running to it. It probably cloaked his walking noises. He said he walked right up on a Sasquatch 30 feet away. And the thing was standing there looking at him. And the guy says, he said, this thing tucked its chin, put its arms together and squatted down, and said his hair started shaking and it disappeared right in front of him. He said there was no brush for it to walk into. He said it disappeared. Now, that is how our government is learning. That's how we learn cloaking technology. You create a certain vibration at a frequency, and you get that at a certain, and you literally, it's like you're bending the light around you to where you're there, but you look like you disappeared. We've had that one night that happened to us. It defies logic. And I've heard people say they're aliens and you know, man, here's the thing. I'm not good. They leave tracks. They have audio. They clearly like to eat, but their stealth is superior because they can do things we can't. I mean, that's just there has to be.
Yeah, it's not like, okay, so we used to spend a lot of time hunting these things, and I'm really good at tracking. It's like my strong suit.
Yeah.
And brother, it's not like hunting a man, but it should be close to hunting a man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the tracks will just stop.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I ain't never got something that if it didn't stop, I couldn't pick it back up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But I mean, they're just vanished. Go out into the middle of a damn field, and then they're just gone.
And well, that happened literally from where I'm sitting, 25 yards from here.
Right.
This thing came up the edge of the woods. It was walking, and it wasn't even trying to be quiet, man. We were playing guitar about 11:30 at night out there. And then it kept getting closer, and then you could tell it dropped, and it was like it was scooting on its belly or something, the way it sounded. And when it got to within 10 or 15 yards from the edge of our deck, I eased in the house, and I got that Gen 1 night vision, Gen 1 Plus. And I'm telling you, there's no way it should have been there.
Yeah.
And there was nothing there. Now, I was telling you when I emailed you, I said, I've only talked to one person about this, and that was Jimmy Barr. And out of the blue, he says, have you ever seen orbs? Man, here's the thing, I have. And now I didn't associate the two. Apparently people do. But my wife, my son, and me, we had a sighting of, okay, man, we've seen a massive UFO 4 years ago down here, but I think it might have been government tech. I'll tell you about that. But we'd watched a movie on a summer night, went outside, loved to sit outside on the deck, just look at the stars and whatnot down here in the country. You have no light pollution or anything at night. You see every star. I'm on the deck looking up at the stars. My wife and son are sitting on like a chair under the roof line of the porch, because we go from the porch transitions to the deck. I can see all the stars. They can only see what's directly in front of them. I look up the hollow to my left here, and I see a perfectly shaped, about the size of a little bit bigger than a basketball. And it was a orb, not a shimmering light. This was an orb, man. And it had an energy pulsating from it, a yellowish green. And it was hovering over top of the trees, and it was coming down the hollow in a very specific direction, and it maintained a perfectly level flight pattern, and it was only traveling 3 or 4 miles an hour. And I said, hey, guys, come over and look at this. Now, all the while, I'm just leaning up, and I said, guys, come over and look at this. It was about 300 yards away. They don't move. They ignore me. Well, it's 200 yards away. I said, guys, come over here and look at this. Okay, now it's 100 yards away, and I'm getting frustrated because I'm looking at this orb, all right, and I've never seen anything like this. Finally, they said, and my wife gets up and comes walking over. She said, look at what? I did this. I said, that. And I pointed at it. And when I did, it stopped. And it was literally almost parallel to me. It stopped. It detected my motion. This is the craziest thing. It went straight up at a very fast pace, straight up into the sky, whatever. And this is hard to explain. I'll just do the best I can. It disappeared into something. And when it disappeared into something, for a brief moment, a very loud motorized sound was above us. And for that, when it went poof, and the entire night sky lit up like daylight for 1 second. From horizon to horizon, daylight, boom, back to dark, nothing there. Now, wow, that is something that I felt like it was mechanical. I could be wrong, because it seemed like it had a purpose, and it seemed like it detected my movement. It went straight up into something that was big but could not be seen. It made a loud engine noise, like a motorized noise, and then a pop. When it popped, the entire night sky literally lit up like daytime for a second, and then back to normal. Okay. In 2021, 4th of July, my wife, son, daughter, and me are coming back from my mom's. It was her last 4th of July with us. She passed away the next year. 4th of July. So everybody's shooting off fireworks. Yay, have fun. It was about 11:30 at night. I'm coming up the hollow. Now, I live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, literally nowhere. As I turn up our hollow, it's called Horse Creek, I see what I perceive as a really big drone up the hollow here. And these boys that are contractors, they're in their 20s. They make good money. And I thought, man, somebody's went out and bought them a drone that cost a fortune. Because from where we were driving, I said, good Lord, look at that drone. I said, them boys paid a fortune for that. It looked like about a 6 foot drone. And it looked like it was just a bar with 3 lights on it. Okay, we keep driving. It ain't a drone. We drive literally right up and under this perfect triangular shaped craft that's about 50 by 50, 60 by 60. And it's up above us, sitting stationary. We stop. We got the moonroof open looking at this thing. Had we not saw it at a perfect angle, we'd have drove right by and maybe saw the lights, thought they were start. But man, it's hard to tell how far away it was. I'm going to say 1,000 feet hovering above us. It is perfectly silent. It does not make a single sound. And it had like an exoskeleton on it. It was black and it shimmered and it refracted the night sky to where it looked like it was alive and nearly invisible. Had we not saw those lights that lined up, we'd have drove right by it.
Oh no.
But the perfect angle, we saw it. Okay. Underneath the belly, and right in the center of underneath the belly, it looked like a glowing power source. But there was no flame, there was no smoke. It was just hovering silent. I said, I hope somebody's recording this. My son said, I'm trying to. He had his phone out recording, and it started to slowly move forward. Well, I live here in the middle of nowhere. I threw it in reverse, do a pit maneuver, and go back down to try to follow it, see where it's going. And it's like it perceived that I was doing that. And from the time I turned and drove after it, it went from, I don't know how fast, barely moving, to where it went, choo, and it shot over the horizon, covered 20 miles in a second. Now, we looked at that thing for probably 30, 40 seconds, I guess, and we had a perfect eyewitness encounter, all 4 of us. Later find out that it appears that might be government tech.
Right.
And I've since then seen these things, and people swear they're reverse alien technology. I don't know. But I believe that it probably may have been something that they were out testing or whatever, and we just so happened to come upon it. But that is something that somebody would say, Bigfoot. I don't know, man. I don't relate those two, because the one seemed very, very man-made, and the other one seems like some type of crazy supernatural creature that's a ninja of the woods that is here.
Yeah.
We've had to mess with their lawn furniture, keep us up all night. I went outside one night with a gun, threatening them, because we have to get up at 5. They kept moving my lawn furniture. I have this wrought iron furniture, kept moving. We lay down, they start moving my furniture. Wind.
Well, let me ask you, man. Let me ask you, because You see me take a picture of the screen.
Yeah.
We hit over 300 people watching live for the first time ever on this show. So congratulations. How many more stories do you have?
Dude, I've got stories, man. I've got a bunch. I've got 56, 57 entries into my journal of detailed things. I've got man, there was a preacher lived up the road, rode a horse, was attacked by one, and his horse, okay, I could let the man himself talk to you. It was his grandpa.
Yeah.
And they thought they were demons, but he ended up pulling his pistol to shoot at the thing because it came at him right over here in Panther, and the horse bucked and he shot his horse in the head. And the horse fell backwards, landed on him, broke his leg, and this thing stalked him all night, right across the mountain here.
Good Lord.
This man, we used to call him Reverend Roberts. He rode the horse back in the hollow here. He wore the hat just like the old timey preachers. He was an older guy, old school. And we all knew that something had happened, but I knew something had happened to him when I was a kid, and he got into a mess down in Panther and got killed. We didn't know what. We knew that his horse had fell on him. Well, just coincidentally, when my friend come up to hang the recorder, he had a guy with him, and his name was Roberts. And he said, "You coached my son in football." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And he told me, I said,
Oh, no, we're going to lose him again. He'll be right back. It just freezes up for a moment. The pleasure of living in the sticks.
okay, I dropped again. But anyway.
All good.
We get to talking. His son was a good player. He's like, "Yeah, man, my son, blah, 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 blah." And he said, "Did you know my grandpa?" And I said, I don't. He said, "Man, I got family from around here." And he said, Reverend Roberts. I said, "From up on the hill?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, man, I remember when I was a kid." And he said, "Do you know that he was attacked by one of these Sasquatch?" That's how I got interested in it. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You didn't hear about him with his horse?" I said, "No, now. I remember when I was a kid, something happened to him on his horse and he about got killed. Didn't know the story behind it." So he tells me what happens. And this happens within a half mile or so of the thing jumping on the bus. And basically, he was riding his horse from out of Coon Branch, was going to ride it down through the forest and go up into the head of Cub Creek, which is right down the road here. And they live back in the woods. His kids would walk out to get on the bus. When I was in high school, they'd walk about a half mile through the woods, man. And he said that this thing started pacing him or whatever in the woods. And he was on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the horse started getting spooked. And he said that his grandpa said the thing finally presented itself to him. And he described it was like what they call it, a mountain devil or something like that. And a big hairy beast with glowing eyes. And the horse was really bucking and scared. And I guess the preacher, his grandpa, had a gun on his hip. He drew the pistol, was going to shoot the creature. And at the same time, he pointed the gun, the horse reared up and he shot his own horse in the back of the head. It was lights out. And so the horse fell backwards with him on it, and it landed on him and broke his leg, and he was trapped under the horse. And he had a revolver. He'd fired one round, and this thing circled him all night. And I guess now I had to ask, he either fired every round through the night, and I guess got down to where he's just praying, or he had one round left, and it started getting daylight, and the thing finally left. And his family, it was common for this guy, I guess, to ride his horse. And if he showed up, he did. If he didn't, he didn't. He'd build a fire, come in the next day. So they got worried about him the next day, and he went looking for him. And they found him with that horse on top of him. And I guess he was just completely just freaked out. And he told me, he said, "Man, until the day my dad died, my grandpa died, he would talk about that." And so that's another story, man. I don't know firsthand, but I'd heard about things like that as a little kid. I got a lot.
Well, brother, I'm gonna have to have you back, man. We went over time, but I've been deeply enjoying everything you're saying, man. This episode has kicked ass. So if you want to, we can bring you back, sure. Do it again one night, man.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can get that other stuff loaded next time.
Okay, that'll be good, man. And listen, I started listening to you because you're a straight shooter. That's why I like you. And if you remember, I sent you some video. I knew you would tell me the truth. You wouldn't powder coat it for me. And you're like, hey, that looks like you got something there. I said, well, listen, and I didn't know you had a podcast, man. And I found you I was like, oh yeah. And never dreamed I'd be talking to you in person. I just wanted you to look at that to give me your real input, because you never get that from anybody. They'll just kind of talk in circles.
Right.
And, but I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed being here.
No problem, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna talk to you off of this show because, like, your whole town, that seems like a whole a killer situation. So those are spots that I like to go to, because you have a lot of people that have had encounters, and then when you interview these people, then land will open up, right? So, like, when I went to Mayaca, I met the one guy that had the footage there from the park, and then I met another guy at the diner, and the next thing you knew, I had like 20 friends over a 9-10 year period, and all this property had opened up, and they were all telling me when things were going on and stuff like that. And it sounds like that's that kind of place you got going on, a rural community. Yeah. And, people are experiencing something.
No doubt. And it's been going on for, as far as I can tell, generations. Right. It's kind of the norm. It's like just the norm, so you've hit it there. And this place is kind of lost in time. Right. I moved here for that reason. I still have well water. I still have to have satellite internet. I have to stream all of my television. I wanted it that way. And with that, I enjoy that, I feel like the positives far outweigh the negatives, but you do have to adjust your lifestyle to bears and deer and squirrel. I'll have 10 or 11 deer in my yard, but things like this is enough to run a man out of here in the beginning. But once you adjust to it, it just becomes a way of life. I have dusted on lights now. I have pole lights. I have a security system. This thing's already figured out where my dead spot's on my house, and that's where it goes to.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I'll have to tell you the story about how I picked up my dumpster and carried it away and took it off my property because it got angry at me. Did that last summer. A big dumpster, like 300-pound dumpster. Picked it up and carried it up, clear across the road up on the hill.
Wow.
But definitely another time, man. I'll have more.
Yeah. Hey, I'll hit you up tomorrow, and we'll talk about it, because I want to talk to you about something else too. So, but brother, thank you so much for being on here, and everybody that's tuned in, I appreciate y'all. And until next time, everybody, y'all stay safe, stay